Now, there is one piece that I should add here while we're talking about strikes, and that is probably the most famous, successful strike, of this entire era, and that's the New York newsboy strike of 1899. So back then, how newspapers were sold is that publishing, companies like the New York Journal and the Evening World, big, massive newspapers, would sell bundles of newspapers, maybe like 100 at a time, to these kids that were newsboys. They were called newsies. And the newsies would take the bundles and they'd go out on the street and they would sell individual papers for an upcharge. And they would, yell headlines and things like that. If you've ever seen on TV, like extra, extra, read all about it. Like that is these kids. And that's really how newspapers were sold. That's why people bought newspapers, is they would hear the headline and be like, ooh, that sounds interesting. Let me go buy a paper. So during the Spanish-American War, everyone was buying newspapers because they wanted to know what was going on. They wanted to, read the news because we were in a war. So every major newspaper increased the price of the paper bundle for the newsboys. But the newsboys didn't care because they were making, they were selling out of papers every day. So they were still making a profit. Like, it didn't really matter to them. I'm sure they were annoyed, but like, it wasn't the end of the world. However, when the war was over and all of these, papers lowered their prices, the two largest newspapers in New York did not. They were owned by William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer. Hearst and Pulitzer were the two most powerful men in press at the time, and they were like, I don't care about these freaking kids. Like, I'm trying to make more money. I'm going to keep the prices high. This sucked for the boys because they weren't selling as many papers, but they still had to pay the higher price. So, these are kids. Like, what are they supposed to do about it? They're all like 8 to 13 years old. I mean, you see the photographs here on the slide. Like, they're all really young. Well, one newsie from Brooklyn, his name was Kid Blink. They called him Kid Blink because he was blind in one eye. Kid Blink was like, enough of this. We got to stand together. There's more of us than there are of them. We're the only reason they're selling so many newspapers. We're making them rich. They need to respect us. So he organized a newsie strike across the entire city of New York, and circulation for both Pulitzer and Hearst dropped 50%. They were losing so much money without the newsies selling their papers. So finally, they agreed to sit down with some of the boys, including Kid Blink, and come to a compromise. They weren't going to lower the price of the bundles, but they did agree that they would buy back any unsold papers from the newsies at the end of the day, which at least would help them not lose any money at the end of each day, which is awesome, which is pretty impressive. I mean, the strikes that we've talked about previously, they erupted in, violence and chaos and failure on behalf of the Union. But here we've got a bunch of kids in New York, holding down and, going toe to toe and winning with the two most powerful men in the press. It's very impressive. So because of that, the Newsboy Strike of 1899 is definitely one to remember.